I'd love to tell you about my business. You know how some people know that their strength or their gifts lie in their wounds or their life story. And nevertheless, and after all their efforts, they can't seem to live fully that reality. And so they're looking for a way to deepen their connection with themselves, to self-trust, and to find an authentic expression. And I also would like to already say here that this is such a pain point for so many business owners of not really being able to say so fluently and easily what they do. And I'm just so grateful for Heart of Business and Mark Stitching to just give me the tools to be able to convey that. It's a game changer. I don't know if I would describe the one compelling sentence teachings to be challenging. It takes an effort that if you're willing to put in, you will find that, you know, it's like polishing a jewel. You have the stones, but if you're not willing to kind of like take the time and find the right angles, then it's going to stay muddy. What supported me in creating the one compelling sentence are two things mainly. One is the teachings that you can find through Mark's modules. They're very clear, they're very concise, they really kind of like take you step by step. Right. And they're kind of like experience based. So it's not just theory and dropping you kind of like out there going, you know, try and figure this out. It's really, really step by step. And so you progress with those steps and you already find something that is quite full in and of itself. But then there is the element of the community. Yeah. So being able to share that with people and say, hey, I'd like to test it out with you. Does it bring names and faces? So if it rings a bell with people, then it means that I've done my work. And people very generously share their experience. And if you ask for feedback, they'll give you feedback. If you ask for tweaking, they will give suggestions on how to tweak it. These two elements has been really, really supportive. Perhaps one thing that jumps into my mind when I think about the expectation from the community is something that I didn't expect and I was completely surprised by, is the level of engagement and the quality of engagement. I've been part of many Facebook groups and many communities, also business-oriented communities, and you don't get that kind of, you know, quality and frequency of engagement. This is quite it's a treasure to have. People who speak the same language as you do. Right. So it's always very vulnerable to share your difficulties and your wishes, especially when it comes to business. Right. There is always this kind of like drive to make an impression, and it's just, you're completely free from that with this community. Yeah. I use the community to test my learnings and my insights from the teaching modules. I use the community to share some of the difficulties or the hardship that I'm experiencing in this journey that could be very, very lonely. And I find resonances in a community that can bring support from that perspective. I test out new ideas. I share my offers and, you know, and sometimes get some interest and sometimes get really valuable feedback. Yeah, I think it's coming back to having a very genuine human connection. Right. Right. It's very satiating. There are quite a few modules that really made a significant impact on my business. One of them is called in the community Customer Focused Story. And it's basically creating a marketing narrative that allows me to speak freely from my heart. And what I mean by that is that I can find my own language that is sort of like legitimate as a marketing language, but it also sells. So I mean, hey, I have offers and I love these offers and I want to offer them to people and I want them to be able to see how they are valuable for them without manipulating anyone, you know, freely. And so this narrative really helped me to create sales pages that really work for both sides. So then there is the module of sacred selling that completely transformed the way I conduct assessment calls, once again, allowing me to very freely, unapologetically, without any kind of like, you know, baggage of I'm kind of like coercing someone into something, to use my time and and offer my time to another person in a way that is very, very supportive for the both of us. It's completely revolutionized the way that I conduct these assessment calls. In terms of the coaching calls, they are extremely supportive. The coaching calls that Mark leads on Thursday and your calls on Wednesday. Unfortunately, because of the time difference, I often don't make it online, but it's very valuable that are all recorded and then I can listen to them. And I find that even if I don't manage to be online or I don't manage to bring my own question, it's just extraordinary to discover our shared humanity by listening to other people's questions. Not only that I get some answers to my own questions, but I'm also getting answers to questions that I didn't know that I had. That's the thing, you know, that there is a lot. There's quite an abundance. And sometimes people get quite overwhelmed at the beginning, but I sort of like perhaps have an inner permission to just allow myself to dip into whatever pool that feels that is accessible for me at the moment. And it's nice to know that, you know, in the future, I might be able to enjoy more of the remembrance meditations, or more of the deep heart calls, but it's there and I don't have to use everything at once.
Right.
You know what? Perhaps there is another point around that in other places, in other courses or communities that I have experienced this overwhelm. And for some reason, I wasn't able to kind of manage that overwhelm so well. And when I reflect on it now, I think that the main reason is that there is a general sense of permission to be expansive and to be that spaciousness that you want to be. So you're not stressed to be something like a taskmaster or manager. It's not that kind of vibe. So you actually get to do more, but with more spaciousness. Mm-hmm. Well, two things that come to mind in terms of growth that I've experienced are in terms of client and income. So I've mentioned earlier that my assessment calls have been completely revolutionized. And what happens now is that people who already make contact with me are ready to work with me because I've had a good landing page, thanks to the customer focus story. And we've had a good and safe connection through our assessment call. And so there is a higher percentage of a yes, you will, at the end of the conversation. And the second thing is income. Everyone wants to have a greater income when they come to think about their business, but it's the way that it came. So I started 2021 with reaching 5 figures, as people refer to it, which is kind of my long-term goal. So I wanted to reach at least a 5K average income monthly. And basically I did doubled in that. It might not continue. And as Mark said, you know, before your business reaches a momentum, expect the fluctuations, and it's okay. And it kind of like really helped me to not sink if it doesn't repeat itself. But it's a true joy, you know, it's just a true joy. Yeah, I feel that I have very stable foundations now that I can trust in,
Mhm.
which I think it's kind of like an important piece that you know that what you're doing, even if it's not yielding immediately,
Right.
you can trust that, and you
Right.
know that you're creating a momentum. So that's definitely something that I feel and sense that I have now in terms of the foundations.
Mhm.
I feel like there is only room for growth and expansion from this point.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that without fears, in a sense that I recognize them as normal fears and concerns when we think about the future. It's normally looked at with concern. But again, I feel that the scale has shifted where I have more resources that I see as very reliable and trustworthy. So there's just room for growth. I think that looking forward in relation to the community, knowing that there are different people in different stages of their business, I had a small taste of that when I started sharing about looking for insights about how to begin to search for VA. What should I consider? Can people share with me from their previous experience in this process? The different levels that people are at gives me the prospect that in wherever level I'm going to be at, I'm going to find people who would be able to share with me their valuable experience. So that's one thing. Just today I wrote a newsletter sharing a meditation course that I'm reopening for the 6th time. But I was very aware to the sense of sovereignty that I had in my body when I wrote that email. And I kind of like really paused there to sort of like honor and celebrate that.
Mhm.
So am I confident with what I'm doing and what I'm offering? Absolutely. Do I stand 110% behind what I'm offering to people and the kind of wisdom that I have to share? Absolutely. But was there room to grow more into my sovereignty? Yes.
Right.
And that's something that for people who are like me, who are already some time in business and they already know more or less the kind of community that they serve and they already have offers in place, they might not always identify or recognize the potential that there is there to grow into their sovereignty. And I think also the need for a supportive community that is connected with the heart, that is there to support the vulnerable parts of us that are engaged in a business is always going to be needed. We're human and we always have this inner world that is engaged in with whatever we do. So I can trust that this will always be available, and that's again having kind of like a continued relationship with so many people who are there for quite a long time, at least as long as I've been there, for more than a year. I think maybe almost 2 years. That's another added dimension, that there are already people that you get to know, and with some of them I've had personal conversations. So it's a home.